Yeah, so well, I don't remember where we left off last time. I know like initially when I was talking with you, I wanted to kind of like chronologically go through your albums, kind of like talk about your writing process, your headspace, what you were doing then. And I think we
Yeah.
stopped like So Divided or something. So I don't know if that sounds boring to you, or I also thought about doing like video reactions of some of your music videos. You tell me, man. Like, well, I don't want to be like I don't want to drone on and have you talk about, source tags and codes
Let's
for,
avoid looking at the videos.
yeah.
Those videos are really yeah, I don't want to see any of those right now. Um
So you do not want to, not even a 30-second clip of, I got one pulled up right now. Maybe just a gut reaction and we'll move on to another subject. What do you think?
um nah,
Okay.
not right now. It's like that would be the last thing I'd want to look at.
I I feel like you guys have been known for, yeah, like your music video. I think you admitted yourself that your artistic choice in some of your videos are odd. I would say.
Well, sometimes they weren't our artistic choice. Sometimes they're someone else's, and sometimes we had, no budget at all, and so we would just like, do whatever we could. So video making has been really difficult. I wish, there's some bands that just like find a videographer to work with, and they, have a great relationship with one guy that makes great videos, and we never had that ever. I tried learning. I mean, the last few videos we made, I did all the editing, and I had to learn, Premiere and Final Cut and
Wow.
After Effects,
Yeah.
and I learned it, and I realized it's something that I could do, but it's definitely not what I want to do. It's not my passion at all. Um,
Yeah.
so who knows? Maybe one day someone that is passionate about it would put our um, music to decent video. I mean, I like the videos that we had early on, like our friend Bruce Dixon, not the guy from Iron Maiden, but a different Bruce. Um, was he did the video for Morning Stoner, which is probably like arguably our best video. I mean, the way that it was edited and filmed and cut and everything, it just kind of came together with that video. As well as the
Right.
locations at the time, because we happened to be playing a show in London. He caught that live. We happened to be going to Paris for whatever, I can't even remember why. We were there in the in Chappelle. What was that? Not Dave Chappelle. Saint Chappelle. It's
Okay.
across from. It's like across the street from Notre Dame. It's the other cathedral. It's beautiful inside, and that's where we shot the some of the interior, like stained glass and stuff for that video.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that was a good video. Also, Relative Ways, I thought was like I wouldn't have if I just caught that on MTV at the time, which I didn't. I found you guys a little bit later. I wouldn't have like thought, oh, this is a weird. Like I thought it fit like sort of like the style of the time. Like I thought
I
this.
me and a friend wrote the treatment for that. Our friend James Olson, who also did a couple pieces of art for that album. Um, and at the time, I think he was reading, this Graham Hancock book, which now I think is just ridiculous. But at the time, we were really fascinated by, these ideas of anomalous archaeology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so we kind of threw that in and all this symbolism and stuff. But I had the luxury of, uh, I guess, directing and making the treatment for that video. And this ridiculous budget from Interscope, which they would, that was like a typical video budget back then.
What was the budget? Do you remember?
Uh, it was probably close to $500,000.
No
It's
shit.
probably like 400, maybe. Don't quote me because I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but it could have been as much as $400,000, and
That like
that's
an
how
average
much
video
people
at the
were.
time? Like we're a rock band that's on a major label. Like I don't even know
Oh
what the
yeah,
okay.
fuck yeah. Um, successful bands would spend like $1 million on a video. And I think my biggest regret, looking back now, is that I wish we had a written the treatment to be about like a house in Austin, and for the video we had to buy a house in Austin, because then we would still own this house in Austin that was like bought by, like we could have bought a house for that much money, and now we'd, have a house that was worth twice or three times that because of the way that real estate has gone up here. But that would have been a very
I
practical
did.
use of that budget.
Yeah, Austin's got, all the tech scene now. You got Apple moving in. You've
Oh,
yeah,
they've been here.
yeah, yeah.
Apple have been here. It was Oracle's the new kid on the block, and then of course you've got Tesla and
Yeah.
whatever else.
I was gonna ask, so I won't show you the video, but there's a couple scenes where you're walking up some pyramids. Where was that at?
So that's at Uxmal, in the Yucatan.
Ah,
Amazing. We'd never been there before. Um, we got to film that footage at Uxmal because you're not allowed to like film a video on a pyramid, but you can bring your own personal camera. So all that stuff was kind of just done with our like,
yeah.
camcorder walking around. But the stuff that we shot that was live, it couldn't be done at any national park. I mean, there's a law against it, and I think the law goes back to this controversy that happened when they were making, I think that movie, is it called Against All Odds? Well, it's the movie that the song Against All Odds is from, take a look at me now. I think that's Against All Odds, the Phil Collins song.
Uh,
Anyway, in that movie, uh, they had a sex scene on the pyramid at,
oh,
yeah, which one? What, Tulum? At the Tulum Temple. And the government was really offended by that because they hadn't asked permission to do that. And so ever since then, or as a result of that, no filming that is allowed on those pyramids. So what we ended up having to do was we had a scout, like a local scout, um, who drove around that area for the day. And I guess if you just drive around those jungles long enough, you'll come upon a pyramid that's not part of uh, the park things. Some of them are not even excavated. So some of them might just look like a hill with trees on it. But we found one that was partly excavated, and cleared. And that's where we shot the video. We drove the crew out there. We had a massive floodlight. Of course, I mean, remember this is all done with like an insane budget, from Interscope Records. So this floodlight was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 feet in diameter. It was so huge. And because we're like in the middle of the jungle with nothing around, no towns anywhere close to us, we were like the one light source. And insects, moths, and just moths from all over flew into this raging hot, um, light. It was really hot, so when they got really close, they just burned up. They just dissolved. But but all around the pyramid, there were just all these beautiful moths. It was incredible. You could pick them up and like, because they don't fly away for some strange reason. You just pick up a moth and kind of like hold it. You have this like urge to kind of pet it, but you're not supposed to do that because you're like the oil on your hands will take the fine fibers off their wings and they won't be able to fly. That's what we were told. So that was one of the magical things about the experience of that video was just like it was really neat filming there.
was
Yeah.
basically Ushman, you said, or what was it called?
Uxmal is spelled UX, I think UXMAL.
Ah, I
Uxmal.
found it. I found it. There it is.
Uxmal.
Yeah, so I've not been there, but I have been to Yucatan. I've been to well, near Merida, there's a city there, and I was more around the beaches. I never actually went to the pyramids there, but I've been other places, yeah, in Mexico.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, and
What can I say? They're awesome.
yeah.
And they're, I also think it's fascinating that they just found a whole new complex using LiDAR. So they're excavating even newer ones. Um, so there's still like a lot of, archaeology to be done there. It's a very exciting time for archaeology right now. We've got some new stuff going on in Egypt. We've got some new stuff going on in Cambodia. We're fine. In Vesuvius. I think they're taking apart the Herculaneum scrolls. So it's a
Hmm.
great time to be an architect. I mean, an archaeologist and an architect.
Yeah, pyramid architect,
You
right?
can just combine the two, right?
Right, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, have you spent a lot of time in Mexico? Do you?
No, not at all. I mean, I would. It's one of those places that we've always wished we could play. We've tried to, make something happen. It just never has. I would love to play
Was that a tour in
Mexico
Mexico?
City. It'd be amazing.
Never did. You guys never toured there?
No,
Ah,
Brazil twice, but never Mexico.
okay.
No.
All right. Didn't know that. Cool, cool. All right. Well, let's talk about. I got your album list here on Chat GPT.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that knows everything.
it knows
You
everything.
don't even have to ask me. Just ask Chat GPT, and it'll
But
tell you.
how about I ask you a question before you answer? I'll ask it to Chat GPT and we'll compare. We haven't talked about Century of Self. Yeah, so just my as a just a random fan of yours and your band,
Uh huh.
Source Tags was probably my favorite album. Worlds Apart was, I think that divided a lot of fans probably. I don't know if you guys are familiar with maybe the reaction of some of that. So divided, kind of like it felt like you guys were trying to tackle a bunch of different genres. And then Century Yourself felt a little bit more like back into like the proggy kind of stuff that you were doing before. I really liked Century Yourself. By the way, I don't know if you're playing it. We can't hear anything.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Uh,
Century itself.
yeah.
The thing that I'm really happy about Century itself was the artwork. I have to say, I think
Honestly,
that was like when my art really reached its kind of peak of unity because I was doing everything in blue ballpoint pen, and
same.
also from the images on that record kind of went on to inspire the book that I'm about to finish. Once I get off the phone, I'm gonna finish this book. But yeah, I've been working on this novel for years, and it came about from the cover of Century Self, which is the boy looking at the skull, which in turn was inspired by a Moody Blues album. Uh, I think it's called "Every Good Boy Deserves Favor," and that's a picture of a boy looking at a light. So that album cover was in my head when I had the idea of the boy looking at the skull.
Mm.
But that image went on to inspire and inform the story behind the book. So that's and the ship inside the liner, like the fold out, that ship was kind of the basis for the story. So the artwork on that album was really inspirational. It was very yeah.
Honestly, that whenever I think of the album, the first thing that pops in my head is the album art, is the blue ballpoint pen artwork. So, mission accomplished. If you were going for that artwork, mission accomplished.
Yeah, yeah. Um, as far as the album, I think that I was always of the opinion that we could have remixed it, completely remixed it from again. I would love to do that. There were things that I thought were muffled, and not only remix it, but I probably would have like re-edited some of the songs so that cut like actually do hard edits on that. Um, there's this thing about when a record's released, obviously you can't do anything after that. I mean, you can make a remastered version or whatever, but I'll never stop hearing the imperfections of anything that we put out. For instance, one of my big regrets with So Divided, if I could do that again, would be to re resequence the album. I would start it with the first song, which I mean with the second song, which is um, Wasted State of Mind. I would start the record with that song, and I would end it with the song that's the first song, which is
Uh,
Stand in Silence, I think. Yeah, I would have ended the record with that song, and I think that that would have been a much better way to start the record. But whatever, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Same thing with but I think that with Century of Self, there was just so much more that I would have liked to have gone back and redone or redid or rearranged and recolored and everything. Just rebuild the whole thing from scratch.
so given that, that actually triggered a question in my mind then. How, when you guys are assembling like the track list, the order of the tracks, how does that work? Like, and maybe and it's probably different for every band, but how do you guys approach it? Or is it something, is it kind of like an afterthought at the end, or does it depend how?
Now, usually, we've always been very serious about it's called the sequencing,
Hmm.
and so the sequence of songs on an album is to me been of utmost importance, because I don't think of an album as just a bunch of singles. I think of it as a continuous theme that you listen to from beginning to end. And so, I think of my favorite albums growing up, Dark Side of the Moon being a classic example, where the sequence is really important, where the songs go. And so, like for instance, in the last album, I think we already knew the sequence even before we finished recording the record. We'd already had it sequenced. We knew what the sequence was going to be. So, but in the past, it is one of those things that may or may not end up as the last thing, especially back then. And the reason is back then, there was this like mastering was kind of like something that we got involved in, where we would actually go to the mastering studio, sit down with the mastering engineer, and I think at the time we were using is it Howie Weinstein? Don't quote me. He was huge in the industry, and he was quite a character too. Really cool to work with. Um, but Howie would take us into his studio, and it's like 20 different uh, pairs of speakers, and you're staring at this wall of speakers, and he's got this esoteric looking thing with a oscilloscope on it, and it just looks like he's like Captain Kirk at the bridge, or maybe more like Spock, more like Spock.
Uh,
And he's just pressing things, and you're just kind of like listening. And so a lot of those sequencing decisions, even though we had ideas of what they were going to be, they were really finalized during that mastering session back in the day.
hmm.
But of course, that was back in the day, and nowadays it's all more like we basically sequence the whole record first, and then we send that off to get mastered. So that doesn't take
I,
place anymore in a the like the old school way.
and were you
Um,
guys like pretty united in like the sequencing, or was it like debates you were having, like, no, it should be this one should be first, or you were all
Now, I mean, I don't think we had any debates um, when it came on their last album. You know, we're all pretty much in agreement as to what we wanted. It was great, because especially with the our most recent lineup. Um, I don't know if I've even experienced this before, but I just felt like we all kind of like think, we have the unified psychic
yeah.
rapport. And so we're just kind of like, when the way that things happen is just the way that we all wanted it to happen. So I was very proud of that.
Is that the same thing for like choosing singles, or does the label like do that? Well,
The label will have has had you know, say in that, but I think less and less. Probably just because we don't really write singles. So
I was gonna
it's
say,
like,
yeah.
what are you gonna pick? Just pick anything. I don't care.
Okay. Well, thanks for yeah, coloring that in. That has often been something I've been mystified about is how bands sequence, pick singles, if there's arguments. Again, it probably depends from one band to the next, right?
I'm sure there are some bands that have a ton of arguments about that type of thing, but
Yeah.
you know, no.
Okay.
Usually our arguments are about like, which restaurant to go for to pick the menu from.
Right,
No,
right.
no.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna see if I have any other questions on Center Yourself. I'm gonna go through the track list. Bells of Creation, I'm just from memory. I know you got some piano on there. I really appreciated that. Fields of Coal, I think was a really good one. And
I
yeah,
haven't thought of that song in a while.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
good song. The one that I like that we always go back to is Inland Sea. We played that recently a few times. It's a song about like meditation.
yeah, yeah.
But I really like the but again, I would love to re edit that. I think that the that crescendo where I mean I'm just nitpicking here,
Yeah, 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 for sure.
my opinion is probably like the least important. But the way that like like in music we call them retards. And it's like when it slows down and then it hits. I
Yeah.
wish I could redo that. I mean, I would actually edit it in Pro Tools to make it feel right, and it just never felt right to me.
Yeah,
So
I will say from my perspective, it's nice to have like it's kind of good that you can't edit it because it's nice to have a finished product, like sort of bugs and all, because
yeah,
like today, like I don't
sure.
like video games, but they're constantly updating the video games, and there's kind of like never a finished product. Whereas back in the original Nintendo, like they released a game, and hey, if a bug slipped out or imperfections kind of make it kind of like
Yeah. But like the person that made it will probably hear those. I always think about the guy that played the flute um on California Dreaming, All the leaves are brown, all the leaves are brown. And then the flute comes in and it's so out of tune. And I always wondered, man, that flute player must be listening to that song on the radio and just be like, oh, why didn't I tune my flute tune before I track that? Anyway.
okay. Here's another random question. Do you ever listen to your own music? Like you put on the not CD anymore, but you're in the car and you're just like, hey, I'm gonna listen to my album. Does that ever happen or no?
No,
No.
absolutely not. But the only exception to that, if I'm like walking around some, city, like if I'm on traveling or something, there have been times when I put on So Divided. And So Divided is just one of those albums that doesn't sound like us. So I kind of like to listen to it. And also it just there's these like really intense, kind of like dystopian sounding, like the song Life, dun, 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 dun. And it's just fun to like walk around a busy city, like, strolling through New York, listening to that on headphones. That's like an exception to that album for me. But all the rest of them,
You would not put on.
not unless like, I think I'll listen to them when they first come out. Like the last album, when after we released it, I would listen to it quite regularly because it was still fresh and all that. But and I'm not saying that it's because I hate our records and don't want to
No,
listen to them.
yeah,
It's more that, if I have a choice, there's, music is a quest of discovery, I think. And so there's music that I'm still discovering. I'm still listening to new things all the time. So there's no real reason. I mean, those albums are in my head. I can listen to those albums anytime I want. I just play them in my memory. so I don't have to put them on. Um, they're
Yeah.
in my head. So I'd much rather be spending my, listening time just kind of discovering something else. So
Honestly,
that's the main reason.
my personal take is I think it'd be weird for a band to be listening to their own music. Just maybe it makes sense, right? When you just release it,
Right.
you're kind of like getting a feel for it. But if you're like your band's biggest fan, like I feel like that's a little weird sometimes if you're just listening to your own music. But
I just realized that this guitar really matches what I'm wearing. It's amazing.
that is nice.
Wine colored.
Okay, yeah. I'm colorblind, so it probably, it
I'm
looks
smell blind.
COVID? Wait, no, that was
No,
taste. uh,
it's an inside joke from a movie called Walk Hard.
I missed that one.
Oh, you got to see it. It's like one of the two greatest movies about the music industry. The other, I would say, is Get Him to the Greek, but Walk Hard is a great movie.
John C. Riley?
Yeah. One of my favorite things about that movie is there's a song called, I think it's called like Jelly Roll or something. And it's the one that he's making fun of Bob Dylan or parodying the Bob Dylan style. And if you look at the lyrics for that song, you can find them online. They're amazing. They are spectacular lyrics, and I guess John C. Riley wrote those lyrics. So some of the best non sequitur writing in ever. So any new lyricists looking to some inspiration, check out that song from Walk Hard.
Duly noted. I'm taking notes. Um, okay. Let's talk about Tao of the Dead, released in 2011. I liked Tao of the Dead, man. It was a good record. It was funky. That whenever I think of Town of the Dead, I think of funky, right? It's not as maybe
It was
straight.
our funk album.
It was your funk album, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a Parliament tribute. It was definitely our favorite record to that point, to make. That was another one of those records where everything went really smoothly. Nothing, there was no disasters. It was like very fun to make. We did that at Sonic Ranch, which was out in near El Paso, a small town called Tornillo.
Hmm.
And it was a very dramatic time to be there. They're right on the border. This was before, I think it might have been before the wall was made. I can't remember. But because we recorded out there twice, and I do remember that the second time they'd already built the big fence, at the border, and the property of the studio is adjacent to the border.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, but at
I
the
thought
time that
that-
we did Dow the Dead, um, that was when all the cartel wars were going on in Juarez, and you could hear gunfire and who knows rocket launching. I mean, it was nuts. There were some tragedies that actually struck some people that indi- uh, indirectly, but some people that worked at the studio, because a lot of the staff live in Juarez. And
Oh, really?
at
They
the
actually live
time,
there.
yeah, at the time, I remember a statistic from then about how Juarez was currently the deadliest place on the planet, like more deadly than dangerous than Baghdad or Afghanistan. Current, then that more people were dying per day in Juarez. So that was just like right there, right there. And we were to contrast that, we were having this like
Jam.
really chill,
Yeah,
awesome time, sitting at a pool. So, but it definitely drove that home. What happened to the? Oh, here it is.
yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at the track listing here. No, that's an interesting contrast to what you had going on. Less experiment, pure radio cosplay, Summer of All Dead Souls.
Gandalf. Hmm?
I'm just reading the track list here.
Yeah, that was also a really fun one to sequence because we wanted it to be, a seamless listen, and putting it all together. I think, Autry messaged me the other day with a
Hmm.
question because he'd seen some. I guess he'd seen some of my synth stuff, and his question was "Dow the Dead Part 4," which is,
Let's
you
do it.
know,
Let's do it. I'll start
yeah.
the music
He's
video.
like,
I'll do the
"You guys
music
want to
video.
make? You should make it."
That
I
would be
think that was
awesome.
it. Could be, yeah. I mean, we've talked about it. It's been tossed around. It's just when the time is right, and when who knows? Who
That was
knows?
that was your
Just
first
seeing.
album with him, right?
Yeah, he was on there, right?
How did you
He
guys
was
hook up
he
with him?
was well, he was on the album before that because although he wasn't playing in the band at the time, he was around. He was, our friend working. So he sings on that album. He was pretty involved with the recording with
Talking about Century.
Century of Self. Yeah, with on Century of Self.
I didn't know he worked on that. Okay.
Yeah, he also helped, kind of facilitate certain things like getting people together to sing. Yeah, it was a really that was a very collaborative record. But so fast forward to Dow the Dad. He and I he worked a lot with me on the songs too. So a lot of those songs were based on riffs that Autry came up with, and then I turned them into arrangements or whatever. So yeah, that was a really fun record, really fun album to make.
Yeah.
Um, there was a basketball court behind the studio, and I always think that that's really important when you're recording. You have to have some kind of like physical release. So the
Yeah.
last record that we worked on, we had a soccer pitch, a full-sized field in the back behind the studio, and we would go out and just kick a ball, throw a frisbee, and it makes all the difference. I would never again want to make a record in a place that I didn't have access to some kind of like, you
Yeah.
know, physical activity. When we did source tags, there was a basketball hoop, and it really helped just to like throw hoops. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so and it also kind of like brings you all together in a way that's not about the music. You can just like
You're getting away
kind
from your
of,
day job. You're sparking creativity. Yeah.
yeah. And the other great thing about that studio, whenever you're working at Sonic Ranch, there will always be, they're pretty booked up. So at any given time that you would book that studio, there's like maybe 5 studios now. At the time there was like 3, but I mean there was 3 tracking studios and a mastering studio and a mixing studio. So at least I'm sure they've built a couple since then, but there'll always be other artists working. And so
Uh,
it's one of those studios that you stay at. You live there. They've got chalet, like little rooms. There are theme rooms, beautiful. It's like hacienda style theme rooms. But you'd always be there, and then there'd always be a band working in the B studio or whatever. There'd be another band across the field. This place called the Adobe Studio, and so it was a really cool way to just kind of like be around other artists, and that you don't get that with many studios where there's like simultaneous sessions going on, but that people get to socialize during breakfast, because the staff would make communal breakfast for everybody. So breakfast was a time where you kind of like see the other people that are working there, hang out, chat with them. And it was really that's like one of the awesome things about Sonic Ranch is just kind of like you're still isolated, you're still far from the city, you're not, at home, but you're in this kind of a small community of
like
recording artists.
that creative people. Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
here. It's the largest residential recording complex in the world on a 1,700-acre pecan farm.
1,700. Wait.
That's what it
Okay.
says.
Yeah. I at the time I thought it was 4,000, but maybe they sold off part of it. I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
pecan orchard. Yeah. It's a pecan orchard.
Yeah. Yeah. That and it says, yeah, bands like At the Drive-In, Yeah, Yeah, Yeahs, Beach House, Portugal, The Man, Orville Peck. have recorded there.
I've never heard of any of those guys.
Really?
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say. Actually, speaking of Texas, I another one of my favorite bands is Spoon, actually. And you guys had what's his name?
Well, Britt sang on the last album. He
Right, right.
sang,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Spoon fan, so that was a great collabor. I was super happy to have that collaboration with you guys.
Sorry,
You're
you
good.
just put it.
I just reminded it's really weird, but we can't hear I can't hear a single
I'll
note.
put it down.
No, no, it's fine. I can't hear a single note, so um yeah, so I just wanted to go back to Autry and maybe we can revisit Spoon and Britt again. But so how did you hook up with Autry initially? Like he came from like the band Off, right? Is that what he was kind of known for?
Well, he was in them recently, and I think they played their final show.
Ah,
Um, yeah, because
he Off was after you guys then.
that was afterwards. Yeah.
Okay.
When we met, I mean, he was
Okay.
living in Atlanta, and then he moved to New York, and then we kind of like met there. Um, and at the time, I guess we moved to New York during that magical period when Williamsburg was actually a really cool place, and there was like um, TV on the radio were
Yeah.
around. We just run into them randomly. There was that band Yesayer who sang on
Yeah.
Century of Self. Um, and then there was other bands that were just really amazing. I mean, just tons of bands doing unique things, and so it was a great time to live in Williamsburg. But so that was kind of like what was going on that was also inspiring that album. And would you remind me what year was that? Did that album come out? Because I'm totally forgetting.
Let's scroll up here. I think it was 2011 for Tao of the Dead. Yeah, 2000.
Okay, yeah. So I always look back on 2011 in particular as a great year for music. Some of my favorite records came out around that time. There was Beach House came out with
That's a good one. Yeah.
Beach, yeah, Teen Dream, and so the producer that did that was the same producer that we used for Century of Self. He Chris Chris gosh, I'm blanking. Sorry, Chris. Haven't seen you in a while. Um, and so we uh, we got to hear that record when he came out because another Chris that was our friend who was the engineer, Chris Padokis,
Hmm.
brought that record over. They just mixed it that day, and he brought it over to the house and was like, "You got to check out this record. It's really cool. It's this band called Beach House." And then he played us Teen Dream, and we're just like, "Whoa, fuck!" I think Fleet Foxes came out that year, um, and it was also a time where, for whatever reason, I think because we were in the know of people putting out albums, we would always hear these albums before they came out. I mean, I remember hearing Tanglewood before it came out. Um, it, I think it got to the point that it was so ridiculous. Autry told me there was this one DJ night where they were the guy was just playing unreleased records, records that had not been released yet. um, but that was kind of the creatively fruitful
Hmm.
fecund time that was going on there. But so yeah, so that was kind of part of the aura
Yeah. You're
behind that
you were
record.
referring to Texas though, right? When you were in that studio, Sonic Ranch. Or you,
Well, the Sonic Ranch is in Texas, and we flew back here to record it. But we were living. Me and Autry were living in Brooklyn.
okay. I see.
Yeah.
Ah. I was gonna ask you something. Was it Beach House? No. When you were at Sonic Ranch, do you recall any of those artists that were like recording at the same time as you, or for Dow of the Dead?
Not off the top, no, because they weren't. It wasn't like they were big artists.
Oh, okay.
At least not when we were there. We just come up. Let's see. Yeah, I mean it's too long ago. I'd have to go back and
Right on. Yeah. It wasn't
Readings
like
of My Diaries.
giant band, like everyone knew. Okay, yeah.
There were a couple bands that were actually from Mexico. So I mean, I've
Yeah.
never heard of those bands since, but they were there tracking, and it was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. There was, is it Pure Radio Cosplay or Summer of All Dead Souls? There's a line in there about you you reference a band, Vampire Weekend.
Oh yeah,
Lyric
yeah.
in there, yeah. Which
Oh yeah, it was just like a pun. I mean, I didn't actually listen to Vampire Weekend, so I don't even know. But I had to put that in because it made sense for the song. Because to me, I was talking about the idea of like a Vampire Weekend was not having to do with the band, was more like about like,
I want to
a
bring up that
fucked
lyric.
up
Now
weekend,
that we
something.
Trail of Dead Vampire Weekend lyric. I want to bring up that lyric that you have there. Yeah, it's Pure Radio Cosplay. Da-da-da. And you can tell me
You
what
can tell me. Sorry, I just gotta. I'm like one of those.
do you believe in a
I
life
get,
that never ends because you'll all be dead with your vampire weekend?
okay, that is definitely not the lyric.
That's not the lyric. That I want that
No.
that's genius.com. So let's try another one. Please don't bore me to death. That's what it is. Please don't
Um,
bore me to death with your vampire weekend.
yeah.
You know that era, that time, a lot of that type of music was coming out, right? Like, because Vampire Weekend, you guys are kind of like rock driven and guitar driven, and they are too. But I feel like I was raised on more like hard rock. And so I don't know if you were coming from
Oh,
that
you know
where
what?
I was.
I can only talk for another a little bit because I got to go pick up my godson
Oh, good. I have to go
from
to work.
school.
You have like another 5 minutes, or we can.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just a funny lyric that popped in my head that I would just want to get your thoughts on Vampire Weekend.
I can't say. I mean, I don't. I've not listened to them. I mean, I'm not saying
What
that I would be
inspired you to use
opposed to
that
it.
to name check them? The whole
Huh.
about being dead, maybe dead vampires. Is that
I,
kind of
I got to go check them out. Maybe I'll like them.
maybe
They
you'll
might
like?
be my new favorite band.
That's right. Okay. Let's see. I've got 5 minutes left with Conrad himself. What can I ask him?
I Yeah, I have ADHD, so I'm always like
Dude,
tinkering.
good. You're good.
I
Oh yeah,
got to
maybe
tinker on something.
tell me about your interactions with Spoon and Britt. Like you guys know you're both from Texas, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, Britt has told me that he doesn't want me talking to any interviewers about him, so I can't. Sorry.
Okay. Hi, Britt. I would love to interview you. If you can hook me up with an interview with Britt, that would be awesome. Is that
He's very
possible?
private and he doesn't want to be talked about.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. What about
Um,
so in the era of Worlds Apart, you guys had like what, 8 people in your band or something? It was like you could
no.
you guys you had a
Worlds
keyboardist, you had
apart. I mean, the most we've ever had is what we currently have, which is six. Worlds apart. I think that was six. Touring, yeah, we had six people. Um, I mean, that was, it was pretty doable back then.
yeah,
These days, not so much. We come off tour in debt, but back then it was a little bit more, affordable. But I kind of wish that it was a little bit more conducive to touring at the moment because I think that with the people, our current lineup is probably the best that in order to play all the songs that we have the way
yeah.
that I would love them to be played, because I mean, I think four of us play drums, so there's that.
Yeah, that
Four or five,
wish I had more
huh?
time with you. I've always been curious. You guys are like,
I
you
think
can do
all of us play
you can do
drums
everything.
actually.
Yeah.
Hmm?
I've always been fascinated by that. I've seen a lot of your shows and you're singing, you're playing guitar, and then you go back and you play the drums. I'm like, how are you guys? so, multi
Well,
lists.
so okay, remember I was talking about how I have to go pick up my friend's kid, right? And I've
Yeah.
been teaching him, giving him music lessons. I'm not a music teacher, but Desi wants to learn to learn music, and so um, I want to teach him. I want to show him, at least give impart as much as I can. And one of the first things that I've been trying to impress upon him is interdisciplinary learning when it comes to music. And I think that this is such an important thing that should be taught way more. Like, so for instance, he's learning piano and drums, right? And I think that those are two great instruments to play to learn together. They're very similar. Piano is a percussion instrument. When you learn the left hand of the piano, it's kind of like learning the bass, and then the right hand plays kind of the snare rhythm, like the Scott Joplin, doom ba doom ba. And so by learning more than one instrument, you kind of increase your knowledge of whatever instrument you specialize in. So I've always told people that are learning guitar that they should learn like the drums and the piano, and if they can, something like the violin. I'd say the violin just because like it's got no frets, so when you're playing a guitar, you're kind of cheating. It's got frets. It's telling you what the notes are. But to learn the violin, you really have to tune your ear. You have to learn how to play in tune, and
Yeah.
so it kind of like widens your knowledge, kind of in the same way where I'm a huge I'm a lover of synthophiles, and so getting into modular is a way of like kind of expanding what I already know into realms that I don't know. And so I would encourage any musician that learning a new instrument, learning another instrument, is one of the best ways to um I don't know, I
Yeah.
think I've belabored that point.
Yeah, I think so. As the final send off where you go get the kid,
Yeah.
can we do a reaction video to your performance on Letterman? Is that doable? No?
Now
Okay. I don't know. I just like to see bands react to their own performance.
it's not even so much that performance that I have any objection to. What I
Uh-huh.
really don't like are reaction videos. I
Don't like
find them so I hate reaction videos. I
that.
don't I just don't want to see somebody's face reacting to something. I've got my own reactions. I don't need to see theirs. The ones that really annoy me are the people that are like at an art museum. They're just standing like, come on, it's
Fair
just
enough.
irritating. So yeah, you won't get my reaction.
So Conrad loves reaction videos. Got it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, it's been a pleasure again. I don't know. Maybe we can do even a part three to finish out the albums, but we'll keep in touch.
Sure.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day and go get that kid.
All right, man. Thank you.
And we'll
Thank you
see
so
you.
much for coming here and talking and just shooting the shit.
Peace be upon you.
All right. See you later.
Later.